And welcome back in, everyone. This is episode 173 of Catfish on Ice podcast, presented by DraftKings and also Raycon wireless earbuds and speakers. Awesome guest coming on board today. That is Kyle Hall of the Broadway Hat Podcast, covers the New York Rangers, also USA Hockey. Awesome guest jumping on board here. Kyle, how are you doing today, man?
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for having me on.
No problem. You know, we've got to get into this trade deadline stuff. It's getting closer and closer. It is my favorite time of the year to cover hockey because there's just so much movement. There's so many rumors swirling around. I can't get enough of it. So we're going to jump right into it here because you put out a really thought-provoking tweet that came across my timeline involving a very beloved player on the Nashville Predators, and that is Tanner Jeannot. And before I really ask you about all that, I want to get into the tweet real quick that you shared and have you break it down more for our listeners here. But basically you said, look, the tweet here says the Rangers need a little more grit in their lineup for the playoffs. And if Nashville is making Tanner Jeannot available, he is the perfect fit. Tough as nails and has some offensive skill. $800,000 contract helps keep them under the cap, really improves the fourth line. You know, you're speaking to the choir here for Predators fans. We know all about the grit that Tanner Jeannot brings. So, Kyle, how about you break down that tweet and let us know why Tanner Jeannot is such an intriguing player for the Rangers?
Yeah, I think the Rangers last year went on that great run, right? The Eastern Conference Final, and they kind of ran out of gas there. And I think one of the biggest issues with that was the toughness that the Lightning had. And you have a Patty Maroon on the other side. You have a lot of guys on that team that are very physical. You need to have a physical team. And every time the playoffs, you see with the Islanders, when they went on their 2 runs to the conference finals, they've had that fourth line that's a bruising line that can really get under the guy's skin. And the current Rangers roster, when you make a move for Tarasenko, you're telling the rest of the league you're going all in, right? So you pick up Tarasenko, you pick up a solid defenseman that back there who can play your 60-man spot and be serviceable back there, which was 2 issues the Rangers had, and they solved them right there. The last one is getting a little more depth. Unfortunately, the Rangers' former first-round draft pick, Vitali Kravtsov, has asked for a trade for the 3rd time in his Ranger tenure, which just hasn't worked out. And when you look around the league, you kind of see, okay, where are teams positioned right now? And Larry Brooks, who does a great job for years and years and years covering the Rangers, threw out Jeannot's name about a week and a half ago. Like, is he a guy who could be available? And it seems like Nashville, I don't think anything's actually come out from Nashville that says like he's available or not. But when you look at what his style of play is and what the Rangers need, it is the perfect marriage. I mean, the guy dropped the gloves with Reeves, was it this year, last year, wherever it was. And anytime someone does that, like,
he'll drop the gloves with anyone.
Immediate respect.
Jeannot will drop the gloves with anyone. He doesn't shy away from it. I don't know if you caught it, but a couple games ago when Forsberg went down, and it wasn't a dirty hit, but he took a hit from Rasmus Ristolainen of Philly. And, you know, Jeannot's always going to stick up for his star teammate, even if it isn't a dirty hit. And, yeah, you got to go back and look it up, Kyle, if you didn't see it yet. But the 2 benches were jawing at each other going into the first intermission because it happened right at the end of the first period. And right at the start of the second period, Jeannot lays a hit out, and they end up getting in a brawl. So, I mean, not with Ristolainen. It was with
I did see the
else.
highlights. Yeah, no, it was with Delorier, which is another animal.
Yes. But, yeah, that's the type of player Jeannot is, just like you're talking about. You're talking about that grit. And, you know, when you're looking at the Predators, first of all, you said – They haven't made anything formal when it comes to any player that they're making available. But David Poile, the general manager for the Nashville Predators, did come out on local radio show on 102.5 The Game here in Nashville yesterday and basically said, look, if things don't get better here in the next couple games, then he can see the team probably being sellers. So there is something to what you're saying here, Kyle, in regards to Tanner Jeannot. I don't think they would trade away a Tanner Jeannot just because he literally embodies what David Poile wants in his franchise. But you bring up a very intriguing thought, though, nonetheless, because I don't take anything off the board, you know, in these trade talks.
The Rangers' is a situation right now. So, I got heat from Ranger fans, believe me, Nashville fans too. A couple of DMs from Nashville fans saying, no way, no chance. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying, like, anything, it's a nice gesture to Preds fans. Like, we want your guy. Like, that's a guy that I think would be great. And the Ranger fans like, oh, we have Trouba, we have Goodrow. Trouba, as much as he, will lay the hits, he's still a top 4 defenseman on your team. You can't have him be fighting big guys in the playoffs, and now you're losing him for half a period or whatever it is if he gets an instigator or whatever it is. You and plus you don't want to get him hurt either. You breaks the hand on someone's helmet. Barclay Goodrow will be the next guy in that lineup now that Ryan Reeves is gone, and he kills penalties. He plays up down the lineup. They need another guy in there that can help him with, and also Goodrow is on a pretty good deal right now for a guy playing third and fourth line, and it would be pretty nice. And the Rangers have a little bit of a cap situation coming up this year. It'd be very nice to have a Jeannot who plays an extremely similar game, probably bigger than Goodrow and can fight a little bit upper in the weight class than he can, but plays a very similar game, kills penalties. He's a year removed from 20 goals in his rookie season. I followed him at WHL his last year. He was fantastic there.
Yeah, his offense has fallen off a cliff a little bit this year, but that's honestly plaguing the entire Nashville Predators team. It's not just one player you can zero in on. The whole team is struggling to score right now, so you can't really pinpoint that as like a Tanner Jeannot issue necessarily. But no, I mean, I think he would absolutely make the Rangers a better team, and I love where you're going with that as far as what you need those types of players to make a playoff run. That is absolutely true, and the Rangers are one of those teams that I got to ask you this since you cover the Rangers. First of all, we're being joined by Kyle Hall at KHallNY on Twitter, part of the Broadway Hat Podcast. Go check them out. Go follow Kyle. Let's talk about Vitali Kravtsov here and the requested trade. A lot of drama going on there. Would you include him in a trade for Tanner Jeannot, or is that a completely separate issue?
No, 100%. 100%. I think no one knows what his trade value is. And he's been on the block for 2 years straight now, probably. And they've been holding out for the perfect trade for him. Very similar to Niels Lundqvist, the young defenseman who they drafted in the first round also, where he just didn't kind of fit into the mold the Rangers wanted. He requested a trade. They kind of held on to him from the year before. And then they found a trade with Dallas right before the season started for a first-round pick. So they waited, and they got the value they wanted for him, and they turned that first-round pick into Tarasenko now. So worked out pretty well there. But what is Kravtsov value? The kid has been in and out of the lineup for the last couple of years, went back to Russia, back to the U.S., back and forth, won't go to the AHL. It's hurt his development, just all the craziness has happened. Is he still, this offensive weapon that they thought they were going to get out of the draft? Who knows? He's shown glimpses of it. He had a very good, nice goal against Chicago back in December that it was kind of like, oh, maybe that'll get him going. Or at that point, I was like, oh, that's a great thing for Chicago to see because they'll want that for Patrick Kane at the time.
Yeah.
But no, I think, I think it was Kevin Weeks came out and said like they're looking, hopefully they can get a second or third round pick for him. It comes down to what value Nashville has for Jeannot. If he's a guy who they want a first round pick in return for, or is he a guy you can package a Kravtsov and maybe a second or third round pick? You get a high-end talent prospect who hasn't had the success that people think he's had in the NHL, but maybe a change of scenery helps him, has a skill and gives him a chance, a team that he can play top 9 minutes, and unlike the Rangers. And then you also get a draft pick and also for him, another lottery pick there basically, and a lot of lottery ticket for Jeannot. But I mean, looking at his contract, Jeannot, the $800K, that's why it fits so well. And like I've said about Barclay Goodrow and the cap crunch that's coming up here, you bring in a guy who's very similar to his skill set. You can move Goodrow then this offseason, and Jeannot just comes in that place at a cheaper contract, very similar player, and kind of take that spot there. So that's why I think it would be a perfect addition for the Rangers. Now, Nashville has no reason to trade him, like you said. He's kind of embodied what they want to have there in Nashville, and the team player and sticks up for his teammates. Why would you want to get rid of a guy like that? But if a deal, I think, is sweet enough, well, who knows?
Yeah, if a deal is sweet enough, yeah, of course. And then also, I do think it's a potential trade that you're mentioning in this scenario here actually could be mutually beneficial for both teams, because from the Predators' perspective, they need more guys like a Kravtsov. They need young guys who do have a knack for scoring. I know that he is still, he's only got 5 goals in his NHL career, 48 games in. But the offensive skill is there, like you said, right, Kyle? In terms of
the
he's got a high
there.
ceiling.
Yeah, he's got a very high ceiling. Yeah, when he went back to the KHL, he played phenomenal. He had a great season in the KHL as a 20-year-old, whatever he was then. He just didn't want to go to Hartford. He didn't think he belonged in the American Hockey League. He wanted to be handed an NHL spot right away and took it as a 20-year-old would. He didn't want to play in the American Hockey League. So he went back home, played well in the KHL, built up some value, I think, but then came back to the U.S. and this year started off in and out of the lineup. And, he's been scratched for 8 to 9 games at a time, comes back in for a game or two, goes back out of the lineup. So he was hurt early in the year. As soon as he got rolling, he got hurt, then had a tooth issue. He's had a lot of issues going on. Yeah. So, I think it's for any team, it's a risk, I think, to take him. But I mean, you look at the kid's highlights when he was a junior and also when he went back to Russia, the skill is there, the hands are there, the shots there. It's just the opportunity is not there in New York, and they've said that many times to him.
And if you perform at a high level in the KHL, I mean that is a very highly skilled league. So if he's already shown it there, I take more stock into that than if he did it in the AHL. I mean, I know the AHL is a great league as well, but it's a much different league. I put the KHL second only to the NHL in terms of skill and competition level. So that's a big selling point. And as you say, there's not room for him right now on the Rangers. The Predators are a drastically different situation right now. There would be room to get Kravtsov ice time and get him chances to actually succeed and put some valuable shifts on the ice and help a team that can't score. I think it's a very intriguing thing here. So I'm going to keep that on my radar. I'm glad you brought it up. We'll see what happens. The Predators have like 8 games left before the deadline. And I've already said that if they just dropped one to the Arizona Coyotes, a complete dud. There was no life in the team. It was one of the ugliest showings of the year from this team in a crunch time situation where every game matters right now. I know that's cliche, absolutely true right now for the Nashville Predators. So I'm looking at these next 8 games, and if they lose another 4 or 5 out of these next 8, they got to be sellers. And anyone, I've said, other than Roman Josi and Philip Forsberg, who are obviously trade protected, they're not going anywhere, everyone should be on notice to possibly be traded right now. Everyone, even Tanner Jeannot. And I love Tanner Jeannot. So I think that what you're saying is not completely out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and I think also Nashville's in a weird spot, right? Like you said there, if you look at the standings, they're 5 points out of a wild card spot. And I think when you look at the East, like everyone's all bunched up there. Like 1 week can make or break your entire season here. So, which is why this NHL season is so great, because you can have, like, the East last year was what every team was like 100 points in the playoffs. So, these teams are it's closer and closer. No team's really running away with anything. Well, Boston's been pretty good, but there's no one team that's been like completely dominant in the West where you can't be like, hell, you know what, that's out of reach. So it's a weird situation for the Preds right now.
I think everyone's waiting for the Colorado Avalanche to finally hit their stride. They battled so many injuries, and they went through a gauntlet, and they managed to keep their head above water, and now they're starting to figure things out. That's the team that you're watching really in the West. But like you said, the West is very much up for grabs right now. You got Dallas. Can we trust Dallas? Are they legit? I think they are, but at the same time, you got to prove it in the playoffs. Whereas the East, like you said, I think the East is a lot more top to bottom, better stacked than the West. Actually, it's going to be a gauntlet in the East, which is why great teams like the Rangers might not even get out of the first round, because the East is that balanced. So let me ask you about this. Let's get into some other trade rumors. I'm seeing that Patrick Kane has got the Rangers as one of his 2 teams. This is per a report I just literally read yesterday. What do you think about Patrick Kane possibly throwing on a New York Rangers sweater?
To be honest with you, I thought it was going to happen last summer. I thought he was the guy. He wants to come to Broadway. He wants to do the whole New York thing. And he held on to that hope that the Blackhawks would somehow rebuild quicker. I don't know what he held on to. I understand you're at the franchise for all those years, and you're going to go down as an all-time great there, and your numbers being the rafters. It's tough to leave a team like that. But I've never seen, and you maybe have, I've never seen a guy come out and comment about another team's trade that does not involve him. When he came out after the Tarasenko trade and said, I can't believe they did that. Basically said, I wanted to go there. I can't believe they did that. And it's like, guy, you're the one who pushed this whole thing off later and later. It was supposed to be Christmas, and it was New Year's. You get to make your decision. And now it's a week before the trade deadline. You can make your decision what you want to do. I just don't know what the final decision he's going to make is, and the Rangers can't stand around forever. I love the fact they went and got Tarasenko before the deadline to give him time to, New York's a tough place to just come and play
for you guys. That is such a great addition.
He's a perfect fit.
He just needed new scenery. I've always been a huge, being a Central Division follower here, covering the Predators. I know all about Vladimir Tarasenko when he was in his heyday. And, the Blues kind of fell off a cliff this year, and he was kind of in just a bad situation. You put him on a Rangers team, he's going to flourish. The goals are going to come, and you're already starting to see some of that. But if you add a Patrick Kane to the mix as well, then I'm instantly putting I'm not trying to butter you up here, Kyle, but I'm instantly putting the Rangers as my top Stanley Cup contender if they go out and also get Patrick Kane.
I just don't know how it'll happen cap-wise. So they have 1.6 million, I think, or the 1.5 million, whatever is at the deadline. And so they're going to have a second team come in, like in Arizona, who has just cap space forever, come in and help them out as a third team and basically just get a draft pick or a prospect for given money, which is a nice deal for a team like that. I just don't, unless he has a gun to the head of the organization and says, I'm going to New York, I don't know how they pull it off, because the Rangers made the move. They made the move, I think, that they wanted to do, and he just wasn't ready for it. So it's a weird situation. And I like getting the guys early. New York's a very tough place to play sometimes. Gives them a month basically before the deadline where you would normally get a guy to get acclimated to New York City, which is not the easiest place to get around. So I love that move. But, if Patrick Kane came to the Rangers, it'd be ridiculous. Your top six would be insane. But honestly, when you look at this lineup, do they need a Kane? I don't know. What else do they need? They need one other, obviously, if one more player in the cap here, what they can do. It's going to be, are they going to go for more of a depth player? Or are they going to go for another scorer? I don't know. Last year, they pulled Frank Vetrano out of a garbage heap down in Florida, and he was fantastic for them, and that came out of nowhere. So who knows? It could be a guy that comes out of absolutely nowhere that we don't even know about that they pick up. So we'll see. It'd be interesting, but they're not done. I can't see them being done yet. They have to get one more piece in here.
Well, yeah, and that kind of follows up what I was about to say here. So obviously, you think the Rangers are going all in for a Stanley Cup this year, right?
Yeah.
They're in that
position. This is it. This is the window. They're in the window right now with the kids on their ELCs and some of their bridge deals. They're going to come up on their bigger deals coming up soon. And Igor is just into his deal looks like one of the biggest bargains in hockey, his extension from 2 years ago. But this is the window right now for them to win, and they have to go in right now.
Yeah. And you really have to do it because, as we just mentioned about how stacked the East is, you got to keep pace in the East, because the playoffs are, you're talking about 7-game series. You got to win against teams like Boston, Tampa, Toronto, which is also rumored to be in on Patrick Kane. It's just,
the Devils been fantastic. Carolina's stacked still. Carolina doesn't.
How do you? That's like the fourth team that we just brought up, and that's literally how crazy the East is right now. It's.
Hell, the Islanders just got Bo Horvat, and they're not even a playoff spot, and they think that they're pushing for that.
I don't know about that one. That was They did extend him, so that makes the deal look a little bit better, I suppose. But yeah, what about the other New York team? I got to ask you that, since you cover one New York team. I got to ask about the Islanders going and getting Bo Horvat. What do you think about that, man? I didn't like it on its surface, but I guess since they did extend him and they're keeping him long term,
I was surprised. I now talking about Kane's rumors, the Rangers, Tarasenko was rumored forever to the Islanders. That was the biggest rumor out here, that he was going to go there. And when you look at what they gave up for him, like, thank goodness they extended him, because they gave up a big prospect. Olivier is a very good young player, and then a first-round pick for him as well. They had to extend him because a good deal for Vancouver getting him out of there. And, they couldn't re-sign him, whatever the deal was out there. So they got him out for a good deal. And I think the Islanders fans really needed something. This season hasn't been the best of seasons. Last year wasn't very good for them. They fired the head coach, which I thought was a bad move, firing Trotz after all the success he had out there. They didn't make any moves in the offseason. They made really nothing at all. And Lou's kind of holding, I'm Lou Lamoriello, I know what I'm doing out here, and hasn't been working. So I think he needed to make a deal to kind of get the fans off his back a little bit and give this team a little bit of a chance to try to make a playoff, not even playoff run, get into the playoffs, which they haven't done. So, it's crazy to see a team out of the playoff make that kind of a deal. But, this could be a situation where if they don't make the playoffs, they could be a move by ownership to either get rid of him or even Lane Lampard after 1 year lose his job. So, there's a lot of pressure out there on the island.
Also, how odd was it at the NHL All-Star Weekend, Bo Horvat wearing a Western Conference uniform, but he
The Islanders
played like
logo.
it was so odd. Like the whole situation was strange. It was so awkward. But he had a good All-Star performance. I'll give him that. But yeah, so
He did. I saw a
that's
funny interview with
interesting for
him.
sure.
Some guy came up to him with a Horvat jersey during this I guess the Fan Fest or whatever, and he was telling the news guys afterwards. He's like, "Yeah, I signed the jersey, my first Horvat Islander jersey." He goes, "I almost messed up and wrote 53 on the signature." He's like, "I had to actually correct the 5 into a 1-4." I was like, "He's like, very different for me."
For sure. All right, Kyle, man, it's been a lot of fun. This has been Kyle Hall of the Broadway Hat Podcast, covers the New York Rangers. We really got into this Tanner Jeannot stuff. He's a big fan. And also, Kyle told me he's just making me like him even more. He said he's got a soft place for the Nashville Predators.
I do. I got a whole soft house, the whole city. I love Nashville. It's a great place.
All right.
It's a good place
You're
to go.
welcome back anytime. It's mutual here because I can tell you, and I'm not just telling you this, I know several Predators fans who actually enjoy watching the Rangers from afar. Since we're in different conferences, we don't have to hate each other. Like you said, there's not a lot of linkage there, but yeah, I find the Rangers to be an easy team in the East to cover or to cheer for in the playoffs. I was cheering for them hard last year. I love Panarin. I love Zibanejad. Shesterkin is a great young goalie in this league. I mean, the wave of great goalies and the young goalies in the NHL right now is just spectacular to watch.
The Russian goalies too. All the Russian invasion now of goalies is crazy.
Yeah. Well, we were talking. We'll save this for another time, but I'm telling you right now, I told you earlier that everyone on the Predators should be on notice. And speaking of young goalies, there's even a segment of the Predators fan base that says, let's just trade Saros and get a huge haul in return. Right?
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's
you think that's crazy talk?
I just how tough it is to find that franchise goalie.
I know,
and finally. And then listen, the Rangers have been lucky. I mean, we went from Mike Richter basically to Lundqvist to Igor now, and then before that was Van Beesbrook. So we've had 4 goalies in a row almost that have been fantastic. So the Ranger fans haven't been. It's like a Yankee fan. I'm a Yankee fan too. It's like the relievers. We went from Mariano, like all these great relievers. All of a sudden we always get, but it's just you get lucky as a Ranger fan, and I feel like when these teams, you see all these teams, especially like the Devils, they just can't get that goalie since Brodeur left. I mean, you guys went from Rene, who was fantastic forever, I loved him, to now Saros, who's also unbelievable too. Like I don't. And
then we've got pretty much what's widely considered universally the top goalie prospect in the world, Yaroslav Askarov. Who's just waiting in the wings to eventually, because Saros is going to be a free agent not too long from now. I think he's got a couple years left. So
look at Hank. I mean, we had Lundqvist. We gave him a year with Igor, kind of like gave him let's make sure Igor can stay in the NHL and play.
Yeah.
The kid went 10-2 in his first season and took it over. But
there's so many Predators fans that just want this team to rip the Band-Aid off and just rebuild already. Like, we're tired of being this first round pat on the back playoff team, and that's all you get. You had the one magical run in 2017, and that's really all you have to show for it, despite 8 straight years of going to the playoffs. But it's like eventually that doesn't matter anymore. And that's great. I love that the fan base has grown to have higher expectations, and that's great. But, you're never going to be truly a rebuilding team if you're the Nashville Predators, if you have UC Saros in net, because he's going to steal games for you. He's going to steal plenty of games you have no business winning. So I think that's what fans are thinking right now is it's going to be really hard to do, but let's trade Saros. Let's get a huge haul in return. Turn to Askarov for the future. He'll be ready next year to go, and just live with it and start building from the ground up again. I mean, that's hard to tell a front office to do that, though.
Yeah, just trade him in the West. I don't want to see him in the East then. Keep him in the West.
Yeah, so basically don't send him to any team that's in the Rangers division, and we'll be good, right?
Yeah, not even just the East in general. I don't want to see him in the playoffs. He's so good. He's a good.
He's always capable of stealing a playoff series. And
I never like seeing goalies up on the trade block because I'm like, oh, that can come back to bite the Rangers. Like now, who's?
I mean, you already have to deal with Vasilevsky.
And I saw Thatcher Demko was a rumor to Pittsburgh. I'm like, no, get him out of here. I'm like, I don't need Pittsburgh having any more goaltending help.
Yeah, I mean, you've already got to deal with Vasilevsky for Tampa, and Linus Ullmark has emerged as probably the leading Vezina candidate right now.
Sorokin
So yeah,
the Islanders.
You don't want to see a Saros join the East for sure.
No. Can you guys keep him or send him? You know what? Arizona might be a nice place for him.
We already sent one of our backup goalies to Arizona. Oh, our boy Connor Ingram's down
there.
there.
Oh, yeah, Ingram's down there. Yeah.
We can't send him another one.
He had a rough playoff series last year. That was rough.
That was just that whole playoff series against the Avs will be in my nightmares forever.
Yeah, it was a good
All right. Kyle Hall, thanks, man. Always a pleasure. We'll be following your work as the deadline gets closer. He covers the New York Rangers, Broadway Hat Podcast. Go follow their podcast. Go follow Kyle Hall. Thanks, man. It's been a pleasure. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me on.
No problem. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. This is episode 173 of Catfish on Ice, presented by DraftKings and Raycon, promo codes THPN. Thanks.